the latest Onyx Path double feature. They came from the Cyclops' cave, and they came from Classified.
New from Onyx Path Publishing. They came from the Cyclops' cave. Experience fantasy, epic, and magical. Recreate the covers of other beloved role-playing games. But play this one. Use magical effects to disappear. Revel. Gallop and explode. Have you ever turned a tree into a man? Have you ever tied someone to a pillar while barbecuing a hand?
No, please stop. That's vile.
Play as fairies, giants, warriors, and wizards. But don't sleep through the action and the drama. Visit distant lands. Brush tiny people. Chart your own odyssey to faraway kingdoms. Grip your weapons like they've never been gripped before. They came from the Cyclops' cave, a game of cinematic fantasy inspired by all your favorite movies of fantasy cinema. New from Onyx Path Publishing, it's stylish. Booyah! Oh, you wait till I get up, I'm gonna give you such a hiding, oh smacko! It's mysterious. I say, this button wasn't here yesterday when I looked. What happens if I push it? Oh, luckily the bookcase only went and moved. I wonder what happens if I push a little further. What might I find behind? Oh my, it's cheeky. Course, sir, did you just see that silhouette we just emerged from? What? Oh yes, of course. It's deadly. It's risky. Very well rolled, sir, but you need to stop making that gesture. Yes, that one. The locals don't like it. It doesn't mean what you think. It's exotic. It's villainous. Yes, sculptures are villainous. What does this note even say? It's too dark to read it. What if I put it in the bug tank? No, still no luck. It's cloak and dagger. Oh, my lower back, not again. Oh, Zappo! This is for selling secrets to the enemy, you bloody bastard! Oh, it's super scientific.
Oh no, not the doomsday device. These goggles are no help at all. At least leave the door open so we can escape.
I don't think I will. It's Classified. They came from Classified. They came from Classified. A game of cinematic espionage inspired by all your favorite spy movies and TV shows.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Onyx Path. My name is Travis Legge. My pronouns are he, him, they. All are fine by me. And I have the extreme honor and privilege of being here today to speak with Michele Masala. Did I get that right?
It's Masala. Yes,
Masala.
It's
there we go.
Close enough.
Close enough. Close enough for horseshoes. Thank you so much for being gracious about that. And yeah, we are here to talk about They Came from the Cyclops' Cave, and They Came from Classified. If you're watching live and you have any questions, please feel free to type question in the chat in all caps or use your lovely chips of Onyx, which are our channel currency, to highlight your message so that I'm sure that we see it. And yeah, let's dive right in and talk about this. So you were the co-developer on Cyclops' Cave.
Yes.
Is that correct? And also
Yes.
did a fairly sizable chunk of the work on Classified.
Yes.
So we'll take those, I guess, in order. Cyclops'
Very
Cave
fine for me.
kind of had you did kind of the central pitch that it's built on. Is that accurate?
Yeah, Cyclops' Cave actually happened later after Classified. I think that my experience on Heroes on a World of Horror and Classified helped me gather the ideas and the structure for the pitch. Basically, it was an idea that had been on my mind for a while, and I constantly came back to it. So there was no way for it to stop bothering me, and I just had to put it on paper and send it straight to Onyx Path. Matthew has said that he and the others had discussed an idea of a fantasy they came from for a while. So my pitch and the ideas in there actually found fertile ground in there, and so I was pleasantly surprised to have it being received so well, and me jumping on board as a developer for that.
That's awesome. So I guess tell me a little bit about what inspired your pitch. What was it that leapt out at you, or that made you say, "All right, I'm gonna go ahead and send this in"?
Well, it's a lot of factors. I mean, I'm a fan of fantasy and mythology as a whole, and I'm not a child of the 80s, but I'm a child of the 90s. So I had the opportunity to either watch the movies in the 90s that came before, even as a fan of mythology since I was a little kid, even the older ones from Jason and the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans. Right. And also here in Italy, we have that subgenre that is you call that Sword and Sandals. And we made a ton of those cheap Roman Greek movies before Sergio Leone discovered the spaghetti western. He did those back in the day.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
so,
yeah, I was unaware of that. That's cool.
Yeah, he made a bunch before taking Clint Eastwood on board.
Well, I'll have to see if I can dig some of those up. That sounds like a lot of fun.
There are plenty of those. So it was all part of my cultural and personal environment. And the actual pitch for they came from the Cyclops' Cave wasn't a complete fantasy game, because I figured that the other games in the line were based on an era. So my idea was to, and this was included in the pitch, start with the Greek movies and then do a supplement for more medieval fantasy, like that in the style of the Camp of Murder Lake, for example.
Okay.
I figured that we could start from there, following the mold of the others with a certain era. But and that was part of the pitch, and something I hoped we will get to. But I think the higher ups, I mean Matthew, Dixie, Rich, and Eddie, were happy to tackle the whole fantasy genre from the start, and I was ecstatic about that. So I jumped on board about the idea of doing one big book that could add the range to do everything, and that was great. It was better than any hopes I could have had.
Oh yeah, and again, I've had the pleasure of engaging most of the They Came From line, but specifically Cyclops' Cave, strictly from a fan perspective. The only work I've done on They Came From officially at this point has been working on the jumpstart for Beneath the Sea. So
yeah.
as I get to look at this stuff, I get to view it just from a fan lens. and I was really blown away at the versatility of Cyclops' Cave in terms of exploring the fantasy genre while still maintaining the flavorfulness that the They Came From line is known for. And could you talk a little bit about that, about how did you find any difficulty in maintaining that balance, or did that just kind of come naturally with the ideas as you explored them?
Actually, it wasn't difficult. It came rather naturally. Matthew and I, it's right on the tone we wanted to have for the book straight away. And I think that helped deliver that to the writers once they joined the project. I think that, we knew that going back to discourse to the topic of the eras, the other games at the eras, it's an element of strength because you have a flavor going on for your game. And we knew that with Cyclops' Cave not having that era, we either had to embrace the range and the scope or deliver a product that wouldn't have been as strong as the others. So just we went straight for it with the force we had right from the start. And I think it shows along throughout all the chapters because we were aware about where our strengths were, and so we just tapped into them as much as we could. And I think it shows.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%. And there are some elements, you obviously you have, it is unmistakably a They Came From game, right? From a systems perspective. It is absolutely, if you're familiar with Beneath the Sea or Beyond the Grave, I don't think you're going to run into any sort of speed bumps in understanding what you're going to find in Cyclops' Cave. But having said that, though, there are some, I guess one way to put it would be there are some system risks. There's some risks you took in the development in terms of adding in new factors and addressing some things, expanding the system in a certain way. Almost, I would say almost more so in Classified than in Cyclops, but definitely in both of these books. And
absolutely,
did you find that as a challenge when you were developing it, kind of taking this system that we know that things work, we know that things are functioning, and we know that it's playing well, right? And now we're going to tack on some new stuff. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges or some of the rewards of those additions and how those additions came to manifest, like the extra things that have been added on and such?
Absolutely. I think that we had our challenges, but the moment you write new rules or test new rules, it's always a risk. So you don't know what is going to work, or the system you are going to put in there to deliver a new experience is something that the audience will get. For example, the dynamic combat system that first appeared in Classified, and we also added to Cyclops' Cave, is another system specifically made for They Came From because it's based on the complications that are part of story path as a whole, but also rewrites. It's something that to help apply more action into your games. Since Matthew actually, because the idea behind dynamic combat, what came from Matthew, is that while in the sci-fi movies of Beneath the Sea and the horror movies of Beyond the Grave, you are more threatened by the monsters. Here, you'd need to have a different tone, which the core system could handle very well, but we wanted to offer a new tool for players to use in doing that and to have more action-packed adventures or movies. So that was one of the challenges. The other difference I can think of, especially it's there in classified because likewise the tone changed, so the tropes and the trademarks players have also evolved with that. But I think we took risks in Cyclops Cave when it comes to first the tropes, because the tropes of Cyclops Cave are more heroic. There's more power in there, but it's not a factor of this book came later, so we kept adding to powers to encourage players to buy that. It's actually a reason as an idea to use tropes as an element that players could use to have their fantasy heroes into the game.
Absolutely.
So that's a thing.
And
other.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I was about to say that the other big thing is the magical effects. It's the brand new thing of they came from the Cyclops Escape. There are basically super cinematics. We can tell them. We can describe them as that, which allow your players to go beyond the cinematic effects and add spatial effects in their powers that are that require a lot of effort from the special effects team, basically.
Exactly, and I think I really like the offset of some of those too. When I was playing, I was playing a scoundrel, and in that actual play last week, and we had a good setup to play the one where like you can either turn something that you found into a magical item, or you can use it as like a magical effect that like imbues something with magic. And just seeing how that cost offset of the way you're approaching it, the way the story sets it up for you, I thought was a really clever way to incorporate that. And just in the character building, seeing those tropes that are used again in Cyclops, at least, because, and I only say this because I have not had the chance to dive too deep into classified myself, but they're very flavorful. They're very good at describing a superpower or a magical gift of some kind, but still able to be applied kind of generically enough that you can easily skin them to fit your character's concept, which I thought was very cool.
The credit for that, as honestly for the whole book, goes to the authors, and specifically in this case the author of the Archetypes chapter. We're blessed for both projects with a great team of people who were passionate about their work and just gave all of themselves to these books. And it was cool because I was a writer from Classified, so I could perceive this as a writer and be amazed already. But as a developer, it's just the greatest thing. You read the stuff people write, you see things, and you think, I have the pleasure of developing this, and together we'll make an already amazing thing. We'll make it just spectacular in the end. And I think our team takes absolutely all the credit for that. It was great for both books.
Well, and it's speaking from a development perspective, it's always cool to have a team that comes in and really knocks it out of the park and really gets the material. There are some books that are a little bit harder to develop than others. There are some books where you have to sort of, nudge a little bit harder to get it where you want it. And it's always nice when you have that team that comes in and really gets it out the gate, and you can then spend that effort playing around and sort of expanding on ideas and building on that firm foundation. So
the effort from all our writers, either the newcomers or the veterans, and doesn't matter if they love the movies we treated, or they discovered them because of this book. There was just so much effort from everyone, and that's something that as my first work as developer, I think I couldn't have asked for something better than that. It was really the greatest first experience I could have hoped for. Yeah, really.
That's awesome. And so let's shift gears for a moment and talk a little bit about Classified. You started out. Correct me if I've got the chronology on this wrong. You started out writing on Classified before you started developing on Cyclops, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, the development part, at least for writers for Classified, had already ended by the time I pitched in Cyclops Cave.
Okay.
So it roughly 3-4 months later after I delivered my final draft for Classified. A little bit of difference, but since they were close, we decided to kickstart them together to give the opportunity. Maybe you're interested in fantasy, maybe you're interested in spy fiction, so you will have a chance to back the book you came for in the Kickstarter, and maybe also have a look at the other and see if there's something to love in there, which I'd say there is, but I mean, to each his own, so
for
that's
sure.
quite all right.
Well, and this is similar to the approach that was taken with the Dragon and Masks of the Mythos for Scion. If anyone had read
exactly
those, there were people that liked one or the other concept, and there were plenty of people who liked both. It's just kind of another way to sort of serve the audience. So in writing on Classified, now obviously the challenges that are facing a writer are very different than the challenges that are facing a developer. But can you talk a little bit about what that process was like, and maybe some of the greatest challenges that you faced when you were working on Classified?
Yeah, I mean, Classified, it was in a sense harder because it was my I had written for Heroes in a World of Horror, but wherein I wrote also for Cyclops Escape, I wrote an introduction and a good bunch of monsters. But by the time I had Classified the experience behind, so that helped a lot when it came to writing for Cyclops Escape. The first part I had to write in Classified, it was a brand new thing for me. It was one of the scenarios, and I had never written a scenario for an RPG book. And like all parts in a book like that, it comes with different goals in mind, different thing you'd want to get to the audience. So I had to plan a scenario that people would want to play, and also could play without being in my mind with the scenario I had in mind. I basically had to put the adventure I'd like to play, on paper for other people to read and say, "Oh, this is cool. Let's run this." Hopefully, we haven't previewed that one yet, so it's coming soon.
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up too, because in my experience writing scenarios, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this a little bit too. One of the things that I find that writing for StoryPath has really kind of taught me, particularly, I wrote a scenario for a Scion book that has yet to be released. And in delving into that, I think that was the first scenario I'd written for StoryPath, is why I bring it up. But in delving into that, sort of really trying to get my head around, like, what are my blind spots as a story guide, right? What are the things that I think that I just know, so I'm just going to do at the table?
That I don't need to explain.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
And then saying, "Oh, I really need to explain those here." And how do you so how did you address that? I know for me it was just rereading and trying to sort of assess what I had put on the page. But
basically the risk is that you take things for granted, but the readers don't have those things in mind just as you do. So I wanted to make sure, and I think that's I mean, I also have written other scenario things that I can speak about because otherwise ninjas will kill me.
Right.
So, but that was my first one. So I think I just laid out all the tools for people to tackle the adventure I had in mind. It's a process there. It's not exactly something you can be sure about. But at the end, the thing I think helps the most is you reread the whole thing and try to notice if there are any blind spots, or maybe if there is a solution to which you didn't offer any tools to. So I was lucky that, but by the time I didn't have holes in the story, but that final reread is the pretty much mandatory, if you ask me. So it's just to make sure you're not sending an adventure which is not actually an adventure, but just a text that people can't use. It's that basically.
Yeah, and story path. One of the things that I've enjoyed about it, in terms of when you're writing scenarios, is I think that the structure, the fact that it really provides at its core that kind of that 3 areas of action storytelling structure helps, because
Absolutely.
as long as you hit those beats in your scenario, people will probably be able to figure out, whatever. As long as you're really covering those beats, it's up to the story guide or director, depending on what game you're playing, to sort of string out that flesh. And so I guess since it hasn't, I know that we can't get too deep into it because it hasn't gone out to the backers yet, but can you give us a little bit of a taste of what that scenario is in Classified?
Okay. Well, I'm one. I wrote for the system chapter and the scenario chapter. In this scenario chapter, mine is only one of the 2, and the other is also great by another writer, which is not my place to say who wrote that, but we'll see that in the future. Mine, it's more of a tribute to the campier side of spy fiction. So the crazy ideas, I think I describe it as a tribute to the Roger Moore era of James Bond. So the which is also basically the way I see it, the part Austin Powers take more after, because you have technology which is more on the sci-fi kind of things. Yeah, you have villains that are absolutely rotten, but also have goals which make sense, but not that much. Probably there would have been simpler methods to achieve world conquest than that.
Yes, I think it's a pretty indicative statement of what the Moore era of Bond is, when you consider that A View to a Kill is by far the subtlest, Roger Moore movie.
So, and I try to tackle all the bits I love about spy fiction, because yes, I might have been the developer for Cyclops Escape, but I'm also a big fan of Bond and espionage and all that. So it was great. I could make an island with a volcano and a secret base under the volcano, so that's great. That's everything I wanted. I have there's a casino, there's an evil villain that uses robots to steal people's identity, and I think that's enough of a hint of the vibe for what I'm going for. Yeah,
I think that should probably let the audience know kind of what to expect, for sure. That's awesome. And
of course, the volcano can erupt in the end. It's not a given, but the option is.
Well, yeah, you don't want to bring that gun on stage and not fire it. And so you said you did extensive work on the system chapter for Classified as well. And so can you talk about that a little bit? Because that's where some of these ideas that I know there were some ideas that carried over from Classified into Cyclops, like you said, with the dynamic combat.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
I was going to say, were there any unique
please.
challenges to
For
that
the system? I mean, there were mostly. The story path core system is really solid, and that has been true since the beginning, and it carried out in the game from Beneath the Sea and to Beyond the Game to Classified and then Cyclops Escape. So there weren't big challenges on the system side of things. The new thing that happened there is, as I said, dynamic combat. So that's something I already talked about. I think the biggest problem, or not really a problem, more of a thing I had to keep in mind, was the tone. There's a different tone you got to deliver through the chapter, even if it's the mechanics chapter. So you can basically I could have go like it's mechanics, I can wing it, deliver the text as is, and call it a day. But that didn't satisfy me and as an idea, and I wanted to, as much as it was possible, to it's the specific tone that Classified as, like every day came from as a different tone than the others, and I wanted for it to appear even in the system chapter. So you're gonna see shades of it in all the sidebars or all the tables, the other titles across the whole chapter. It's something that I didn't invent the wheel, because the authors for Beyond the Grave and Beneath the Sea did the same back when it was their time.
Right.
But I wanted to do that as well.
Well, and it's one of the things that I think makes the They Came From line A so fun, but B stand separately from the rest of StoryPath in terms of most, and separately from a lot of role playing games. A lot of role playing game manuals, they speak at you instead of to you, if that makes sense. When you get into the mechanical stuff, it's a very sort of textbooky, cold sort of a dispassionate, omniscient narrator is telling you how these rules work, and that is not the case in the They Came From line. You have a personality that is engaging the reader, and I think that's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, you can't diverge too much because you're trying to explain the rules to people, so it's not ideal to go full purple prose, and because you want people to see the rules and learn it without having trouble and stuff. But you try to put bits here and there that make things a little bit lighter, that help you carry through the whole system. The story path is a really smooth system. It's a pleasure to read, no matter the game. But you try to do your best with the game at hand and to complete the experience even in a chapter like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly nothing against any other role playing game that doesn't do that by any stretch. But it's a nice feature of They Came From, I think, because I also think it gets you. I think that's a really nice shorthand for getting the reader into the frame of mind for the game, right? Into understanding the flavor of the game.
Yeah, everything helps.
And it's never in my experience been intrusive, and I think that's the concern. I think the concern would be, could just cut through all the cute stuff and give me the rules. But I don't think it's ever intrusive with these games. I think it's just an added spice, and it's very, very nice. So now there was also in both of these games there's a mechanic that sort of plays off of the twists that were introduced in Beyond the Grave. Is that correct? So
in Camp of Murder Lake.
Oh, was it Camp Murder Lake
twist,
that they
yes,
were introduced?
which is a Beyond the Grave supplement, so it's Beyond the Grave.
Right, and so they're now again. I haven't looked as closely at Classified as I have Cyclops yet, but in Classified they're just considered twists, correct? Or is it in both games?
There's the fiendish plots and the twist,
okay,
unless
right.
I'm mistaken.
Fiendish
It's been a while since that one, because I wasn't a developer, so I didn't obsessively reread everything again and again as I did with Cyclops Escape.
Right.
A while in Cyclops Escape, we have the fiendish plots, which are basically your antagonists. I guess I should explain twists as a whole and the elements that followed. They are basically random generators for story elements you can apply to. So you roll, you discover who your antagonist for this adventure will be, where it will be set in, and other twists like a secret weapon or a specific spell or an unexpected power, basically. And it's a cool thing because it also allows the story guide, or in this case the director, to add an element of a surprise to the game, because you'd never if you follow those, which it's not allowed if you roll something, you don't have to follow that if that doesn't work for you, but it helps to trigger creativity in that sense. It's a useful tool.
Sure, yeah, and it's ideal for people such as myself who are sometimes too lazy or busy to plan this week's session. You know, you can just be like, hey, let me do this, this, and this. And then with Cyclops' Cave, it's what, Mysterious Places? Is that the edition?
I think it was Fantastic Settings.
Fantastic Settings, yeah, and so those are more like a set piece oriented sort of approach to it, which I think is cool. And correct me if I'm wrong, all those things lined up to get cards attached with them?
I think that's the plan, yes. Because as cores, I mean, the supplements we release later, like Heroes in the World of Horror, is getting its cards, and so is Camp Over the Lake. But I think that, at least from a foundation standpoint of view, that the cores will eventually get their cards, and probably as cores along the cores themselves as they get out. So that's covered. Nice. Unless something catastrophic happens, but that's something that it's up in the air right now with the world as it's going.
We've had enough catastrophe. We could use a moratorium on catastrophes for the rest of 2022. Would be nice. So I guess I saw on the Kickstarter that we had unlocked the action heroes. Have you? Have you had any involvement with that, or were you not on that project at all?
For now, at least for what I know, that's an idea Matthew had, but I have a general sense of what it is, but I'm not officially involved yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I hope I will, because
well, and
I love these games. And
I saw too that they just announced the cinematic powers expansion, if we can get up to, I think it's like 45,000.
Yeah, the idea behind those is to offer the tools to move a little further than the action, the spy action of Classified into the explosive action of the 80s.
Right, I shoot this car with my Saturday night special and it explodes.
We discovered that this Kickstarter is a good place to introduce that, because we have a link between our fantasy and our espionage in the form of Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger himself.
Yes.
Conan on one side, and on the action side, it could be, well, from Terminator to Commando to everything.
Right. True Lies would be like, if I was gonna
True
say
Lies.
like, okay, how do we tie
Yeah.
the governor's body of work into these two games?
Of course, we pay tribute to Arnold. Actually, I must say that in the scenarios for Classified, there are two separate references to Arnold that I and my colleague both put there without talking to each other in the moments. Two separate instances of Arnold tributes in Classified already. So you can see how the will to have They Came From With Arnold is there also in Conan, because as you know, so he might be the the poster child for these stretch goals, but of course that would offer tools for his rival Sylvester Stallone, of course,
Right.
and all the others. So
Yeah, you can get the full
I-
Expendables experience, as it were.
yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
hope we'll get to those, because that would be really great. Absolutely.
It would be amazing. So yeah, if you're seeing the sound of our voice, yeah, if you're hearing the sound of our voice, whether it's live or later on in the VOD, and you haven't run over and backed that Kickstarter yet, by all means, please do so. We have a lot of cool stuff still on the table to unlock.
The archetypes are unlocked, and that's awesome, really, really awesome. But there are also the cinematics along the way, and those would make Michael Bay proud. So let's try to go for those.
I love it. And so speaking a little bit on cinematics, tropes, archetypes, things along those lines, one of the things that I find very cool about the They Came From line in general is the idea of, because all these rules kind of follow the archetype, your tropes will stick to your archetype effectively. There's really nothing that prevents you from saying, all right, well, we're going to run Cyclops' cave, but I just want to be, I would like to approach my spellcaster like the mystic from Beyond the Grave. You can absolutely just pick that up and put it right in there. Which is a very cool feature that it strikes me as being very interesting from a design perspective, because it's not, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this,
Sure.
but it doesn't seem to be like that is necessarily like a design mandate so much as just kind of the natural function of the way that the system, right? Like They Came From Beneath the Sea was not designed to say, oh, when we do Cyclops' Cave 4 games from now, we want to make sure that those characters will work together. It just happens to kind of come together that way because of the core assumption.
No, I mean, you are absolutely correct there. I'll say that they came from games working together if players want so, is something Matthew always, as the line developer, of course, Matthew always cared a lot about. So there wasn't a mandate to not do this thing or not do that, but the idea that you could pick a supplement, Monsters from the Deep, the monster supplement for Beneath the Sea, and use those monsters in your Beyond the Grave campaign without having any trouble of any sort. You just I mean, what I'm trying to say is that these games work on their own, but they also can be seen as part as a whole to experiment together without any trouble. I mean, I'll make a silly example. One of the reasons we, as a fantasy genre in Cyclops' Cave, we didn't put in there monsters like the Kraken itself or vampires or mummies is because those monsters are in Beneath the Sea, they are in Beyond the Grave, and you only need to open those respective books to add them to your fantasy book, to your fantasy campaign. which is a strength actually, because it allowed us to focus on new stuff, completely new stuff to add, so that even if you back these games and then you'd say, but I still want to play my Beneath the Sea because it's a great game, even after a bunch of years. Now I can look at the other games and take stuff from the games that happened later and use them in my Beneath the Sea game.
Right.
So
keep
you
things
can
fresh.
mix everything.
Yep, that's awesome.
And likewise with the archetypes and the cinematics, you can just do that. They are completely modular. There are differences between the games, more on tone, theme, and the general vibe, and perhaps something that you might want to not keep an eye out, but just keep in mind as you go. But you won't have any problem whatsoever mixing things as whatever you want. One of the examples we use in the Cyclops Cave introduction that you can use Cyclops Cave to run a game where the main character is from beyond the grave, a hunter from beyond the grave, and basically run Army of Darkness.
Right,
Because
yes.
it's hard to deny that Ashley Williams is an hunter from beyond the grave that just got isekai'd and into a fantasy world in the last one.
100%.
And it's there because we want to give them players not only that they can do that if they want, but the games don't mention it. No, we want you to know that the games know that you can do that, and we endorse that. Have fun with these games, experiment, and do this stuff as much as you want.
One concept that I've kicked around for a live stream that I may do once my schedule lightens up a little bit is they came from UHF, which would effectively be like imagining action heroes from each of these genres sort of all fall through the space between channels, and now they're stuck like in this Exiles or Sliders type of scenario where they're going back from movie to movie. So it's the same characters, but they're leaping around between the different games, you know.
A bit of something between Quantum Leap and Doctor Who.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think it could be a lot of fun. We do have a question in the chat. I was actually about to point out to the audience too. We got about 15 minutes left, so if you do have any questions in the chat, or have any questions, please make sure they make their way into the chat right now. I'm going to bring this one up just so that I've got it in a nice, easy place to see. So the question is, how do you think they came from games work if we want to use them to tell quote-unquote good stories instead of quote-unquote campy, hammy, or cheesy stories? Do you feel, for example, that you could run a serious fantasy game with high stakes but also inject humor? Same thing, because Matthew had mentioned that he wanted Cyclops' Cave inspiration to stop before the Lord of the Rings films, but what if we were to take modern inspiration? Same thing being with, things like Camp Murder Lake, where kind of, I guess, to summarize, you see it start kind of in the 80s and carry through now, where there's sort of a genre renaissance where people, where these genres of film start being approached more seriously and being given greater budgets and really given approached more critically as well, right?
Yeah.
And so what are your thoughts on the functionality of the system to represent those things?
I think, and that's a question I say often because I really care about this. You can see these games as pure comedy if you want, but the way I see them is they are more of a tribute to the genre they are spoofing and the tools you're giving you. So while the acknowledgement of the meta aspects of the game and the movies is there, you absolutely have all the tools to basically replicate those exact movies with the tone you have in mind, which, those movies, they weren't always intentionally campy or intentionally hammy or anything. but they were honest in what they were trying to do, and they came from is something that gives you really the tool to do that. You can range your comedy from a satire, a parody, to something that's more of an affectionate tribute, or even that doesn't show as much. So the tools to run whatever tone you have in mind for those movies, be even in Camp Murder Lake or even Cyclops Escape Classified. I have ideas in mind. Some are just to have a laugh and enjoy some time with friends, but others are basically me using these games to run these movies. And run these movies mean running the good aspects of these movies before the audience took them in their heart. So you can skip the passage and the repeated quotes and everything, and just approach these games as a way to tell honest stories based on these movies. So you can have your more, let's say, your good stories, be them about Lord of the Rings or Dragonheart or Willow or James Bond in any of his incarnations, or the good slasher ones, not the strange ones later along the line when they either go to space or something weird happens.
Right, yeah.
The ones where Freddy is really scary and the things are scary. So you can do that.
You can absolutely do Nightmare on Elm Street 4, where he's wisecracking and, let's suck face, and then he kills the girl with the asthma or whatever. But you can also do New Nightmare, where it's just terrifying. I'm running right now. I'm recording, and it will be on the channel in a few weeks. They Came from Camp Murder Lake actual play that started out conceptually like, haha, we're gonna have a fun time, do a slasher, and it's really turned super disturbing because of the choices the players wanted to see in the game. They're like, oh, I want a creepy kid. I'm like, are you sure? No.
Something that I feel that has been important to Matthew since the beginning, and was also really important to me as I wanted to make Cyclops Escape, and also when I wrote Classified, is that I wanted this game to have to offer the opportunities to do the genre we had in mind in many different ways. Sure, there's a loving for the movies in there that shows in some jokes or picking at the parts that stick in mind, but the really important thing is that you can do that in many different ways. And the tone that we had in mind for the different games is there to offer you a perspective on that. You can do these things in many different ways, and there's no intended tone really behind everything. In Beneath the Sea, it was more pronounced because those movies are a bit more on the nose, I should say. The creatures are a bit stranger. The movies themselves don't take themselves too seriously. But the other games, Beyond the Grave, is more melodramatic. Being Classified is more glamorous, while Cyclops Escape is what I like to call bombastic, boisterous entertainment. There's different tone in there, and you can take the apex of the respective genres, that, like we can say the modern Lord of the Rings or other critically acclaimed movies from any of these genres, and take them as your polar star to guide your games forward.
Absolutely, and I think that it's fair to say that the common element for those is a love of the genre, and I think that really shows through in the text. And the other thing I just wanted to throw out there for the audience to consider, coming from like I've spent some time in the independent film, like they call them ultra low budget independent films. I promise you, nobody makes a bad movie on purpose. You know what I mean? No matter what their budget is, nobody's setting up. Even, you take something who's famously bad films, Trauma, right? They're not making movies. They're not making those movies with the idea of I'm going to make a bad movie. They're making those movies with the idea of I'm going to fit these beats, and it's going to be, and it's going to be very good at doing those things. You know what I mean? So as long as the love is there, I think it shows through. And I know we're just a few minutes away from the end here, but there was something that I wanted to ask you about because I saw it come across the Twitter feeds. Do you feel like you can take a moment and talk about the inspiration of a certain author as it came along to the pitch? And that recent exchange, because that was a lot of fun to see.
Yes, it was. I mean, there's a special thanks in the Cyclops Escape that goes to actually not this author, but to Kentaro Miura, the author of Berserk, which he died as we wrote the book, and I recognize just there how much important he was to me as a creator. So our special thanks is there for him. But yes, there's also this famous author is Gail Simone. She's a comic writer of the highest order. She wrote for DC, for Marvel. And there was a work of hers that has been instrumental for me because the pitch for Cyclops Escape had been in my mind for a while. But I was still making I'd made a few steps into Onyx path. I had already worked on a few projects, but not that many to encourage me enough to pitch a core book for a brand new game. Sure. So the pitch was there in my mind, and it happened to that a reprint of a Red Sonja arc happened around here. And I'm a fan of hers. I've read the things here and there. So I just read it, and there was a passion for the fantasy in the form of the thrill of fantasy and the honest love for these characters, for what they embody, and the stories they can be used to tell in a modern optic, because these stories are often carry, to say the least, prejudices and all sorts of other problems in there. But there was this fresh take of a character that within the pages you could see just the love for the pulp fantasy. And I saw that, and it was encouraging, to say the least. And I processed that to my idea for a game inspired by mythology, which I love so much, and fantasy of the movies of the 90s that I loved, like the Dragon Art, like the Merlin miniseries, the movies that I recovered later, from Conan to the older one, Clash of the Titans, Jason of the Argonauts. And so I said, okay, I see that this thing works if you do that with the right kind of love, with the right kind of passion. And this idea has been on my mind for a while. I need to try to make a little step in that sense, and let's see if I can have a go at this. And it was right there because of the tipping point, we can call it as like that, was me reading the Gail Simone Red Sonja arc, and which is really fun.
That is awesome, and I also am a huge fan of Gail Simone stuff. So on the off chance you see this, Gail, anytime you want to come play on the channel, you let us know. We will make space, promise. And that also ties everything back neatly to Arnold in a way, right? Because Arnold was
in a way, yes.
Red Sonja. So
yeah, that's a weird movie. Yeah. That was
Was it Brigitte
Italian,
Nielsen?
Italian producers having trouble with the copyrights, but still wanting to make movies. So they just make a different movie, still call in Arnold, slap a different name on him, and call it a day. Conan was a really Italian movie for production values. Lots of people from my country worked on the sets, worked on the story. So the Red Sonja movie wasn't so good. But hey, it ties back to Arnold. That's true.
Right?
So,
Yeah. See, it's the 6 degrees of separation of fantasy film. But yeah, it's been a real pleasure to sit down and talk with you about this stuff. It's been a real pleasure to sit down and be able to play through these games, and again to have the opportunity to engage them largely as a fan. You know, sometimes when you get into the work as a creator, you can get a little bit blinded. I don't want to say blinded, but you can start to lose focus on the joy. You know what I mean?
That's the risk. Yeah, that's the risk. Yeah.
When you're getting down into the nitty gritty of how do I make this book work? And I've been able to experience the majority of the They Came From line without that burden, and it really works. It's really fun. I cannot recommend these games highly enough.
Thank you.
I'm really happy for you for the success the Kickstarter is seeing. I'm hoping that we can get to some of those larger stretch goals. Go ahead and throw the link in the chat one more time. And I really am just grateful for you taking the time to speak with me.
It's been my pleasure.
I know it's busy, and I really appreciate you taking the time, and I look forward to doing so again. Maybe one of these days we can throw dice at the same table under some circumstances or other.
That will be cool. I love these games, and so being in to talk about them, to give the opportunities to give them a chance was really my pleasure. Thanks you for having me here, Travis.
Absolutely, and I'd like to once again thanks Chet for the thoughtful questions, and I want to remind you that if you're seeing this on the VOD, the Kickstarter is still going. Go ahead and check that out. We've got a couple good stretch goals unlocked and several more that have been announced. So please, the best thing you can do is offer your support, be it through backing, through sharing the link on your social media, you're talking about these games with your friendly local game store crowd, or with the employees there. We do have packages there if retailers want to get involved as well. So there's a lot of different ways to sort of support this, even if maybe you're not in a financial position at the moment to do so. We all recognize that the world is in a bit of a state at the moment. So,
we are thankful for everything you can give us. It really matters a lot. So thanks about that.
100%. Yeah, this is at the end of the day, we've made a couple more dreams come true as these. You know, I talk a lot about working in this industry for me as a dream come true, and I've been fortunate enough to work in 2 industries where I could say that. When people are supporting these games, they really are enabling people who love the hobby to continue producing material that we can all enjoy together. And that's the world needs as much of that as we can get. So if there's anything that you would like to share that's non-related to the Kickstarter, anything else you want people to go look at, anywhere where people can find you on the internet, anything along those lines?
I think that right now I'm a little bit buried in NDAs, so
that's fair.
I'm thankful for that. It's always great when you have several NDAs going.
There's so much going on, I can't tell you any of it.
I don't like being idle with nothing to do, so I'd rather have lots of things I can talk about rather than not. So
that's fair.
Right now it's all about the Kickstarter, and I also say that on the Sundays I'm part of an actual play on Scion on this very channel, and we are having lots of fun on that. So you can see me rant and have my weird Italian accent that I can make very worse. So I'm trying. I'm trust me. I could make this sound worse, like Brad Pitt characters in Inglourious Basterds bad. So this is good.
Well, you sound very clear and very understandable to me. And yeah, I'm very excited about that Scion actual play you mentioned there. We have kind of a Scion Sunday going on now on the channel because just before you air, we have Godsend from the Rolling Nomads group. So basically, it's back-to-back Scion actual plays. If you want some more Scion in your life, Sundays on this very channel is the place to be.
I guess there's a little thing that I can say that I made sort of an unofficial They Came From line. I wrote a Christmas movie supplement for They Came From on the Story Path Nexus. It's They Came From the North Pole, and that got awesome feedback as for a non-canonical supplement. So that's me writing a They Came From thing that you can check out. It's also lots of fun.
Definitely head over to the Nexus and pick up literally everything. That place is just, there's amazing stuff coming out of the Nexus. So highly recommend heading over and checking that out. If you haven't yet done so, please follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Head over and check out the Kickstarter. I will be back here on the channel Thursday for They Came From the Cyclops' Cave actual play. And then on Friday night, I'll be here to play Cavaliers of Mars, which I'm excited about, incredibly excited. I love that game. I'll take any chance I can to play it.
It's great.
It's a lot of fun. So yeah, lots of buckles being swashed this week, you could say. All right, well, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Travis.
And once again, thank you so much to the audience. Take care of yourselves and each other. Make sure you get your shots if you can, and wash your hands.